Today on Government Matters, NASA launches a spacecraft to redirect a harmless near-Earth asteroid. 10 months from now, we'll find out if the golf cart-sized spacecraft knocked away the asteroid. We speak with the agency's Planetary Defense Officer to see how the DART team will measure success and use the new technology for future operations. And the Space Development Agency is DoD's way to develop space-based capabilities and deliver them to the warfighter quickly. We talked to the SDA director about how the agency is working to deliver results. Government Matters starts right now.
From Washington, D.C. and around the world, this is Government Matters with Mimi Geerges.
This is Government Matters, the only show covering the latest news, trends, and topics that matter to the business of government. I'm Mimi Geerges. On November 24th, NASA launched a spacecraft into space, the first spacecraft sent to hit and redirect a harmless near-Earth asteroid. It's called the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART. The trip takes 10 months, but if it's successful, NASA will be able to deflect dangerous asteroids plummeting towards Earth years in advance. Lindley Johnson is the Planetary Defense Officer and Program Executive for the Planetary Defense Coordination Office at NASA. Lindley, welcome to the program.
Yes, hi, Mimi. Glad to be here.
So what are the odds that, an asteroid will plummet to the Earth and take out entire cities?
Well, that is an extremely rare event, thankfully, but it is something that could happen. And there are literally tens of thousands of asteroids in near-Earth space that we're trying to find them all now. But until we do and know where they are and where they're going, that possibility exists that we could be faced with such a natural disaster.
So the possibility exists, but what about the probability?
It's all kind of a random thing. The Earth gets hit with a sizable asteroid of tens of meters in size every few decades to a century. Maybe on average once in 1,000 years, we get hit with something of significant size that it could do regional damage, devastate a statewide area.
So the DART mission is kind of unusual for NASA since it's a civilian organization and the mission has always been about exploration, not about protecting the planet.
Well, planetary defense, I like to refer to planetary defense as applied planetary science. What we've learned through our planetary science exploration tells us, first of all, that those asteroids are out there in near-Earth space. And then it takes the techniques and technology of planetary missions to be able to deflect one should we ever need to.
So what have been the challenges that you faced with launching this mission into space? How did you manage all those moving parts?
It is quite a complex thing to undertake an interplanetary flight mission, but it's teamwork. It's the knowledge and skills of both our NASA workforce and our partners, in this case with the DART mission, the Applied Physics Lab in Laurel, Maryland, and their experience in both NASA missions, planetary missions, and their work with the Department of Defense.
So as the spacecraft starts to approach the asteroid and hopefully makes contact, what will you all be looking for on the ground?
Well, the whole point of this test is to change the velocity of the moonlet dimorphos around the primary asteroid Didymos. And so we are going to run this spacecraft into dimorphos at a high velocity to change its velocity, and that changes its orbit around Didymos. So we will be looking, first of all, we've known about this asteroid for almost 25 years now and have well studied it. And we know very well the period of the moonlet's orbit. We're impacted with the DART spacecraft. And then after the impact, we will again look at that from ground-based observatories examine the light curve, the light coming from the asteroid, which indicates to us what the change in period of the moon is about Didymos.
Are you going to be? Are we going to be able to see video of this as it approaches and hits?
Yeah, the DART spacecraft has a camera on it that will be streaming images down at about a 1 second frequency, and we're be showing that imagery as it comes in. There is also accompanying with us a CubeSat that was provided by the Italian Space Agency that we will deploy a few days before the impact, that will follow us in but not impact off to the side. And we'll also take images trying to capture the impact, the ejecta that is coming off the surface of the asteroid, and the rest of the Didymos system. Those images won't come down immediately, but in the days following.
And give us an idea of the sizes we're talking about, because I understand the spacecraft itself is about the size of a golf cart. How big's the asteroid?
Well, the primary asteroid, Didymos, is about a half mile across in size. And the moonlet Dimorphos is about the size of a small football stadium. Relatively small an asteroid compared to asteroids, but kind of a moderate size for near-Earth asteroids. And Dimorphos, were it on an impact trajectory with the Earth, that's a size asteroid that could do pretty serious damage, devastate a statewide area.
And I mean, I understand that you would be confident that it's going to hit, but what if it misses?
Well, that wouldn't be a good day for us from an aspect of our flight missions. We're really confident that we can impact. It's a challenge, but one that we have experience with challenges. That's what we do at NASA.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick pause here, and then we'll continue our conversation.
Okay.
Coming next, we'll continue our conversation with Lindley Johnson, NASA's Planetary Defense Officer. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're discussing NASA's effort to deflect a near-Earth asteroid. With Lindley Johnson, he's the Planetary Defense Officer and Program Executive for the Planetary Defense Coordination Office at NASA. So, Lindley, assuming that the asteroid is hit and is redirected, can you tell me a little bit about the data that you will be collecting that will then inform future missions?
Well, the data that we're collecting to see how we've changed the moonlet asteroid's orbit is actually the light curve of the system. As the moon goes around the primary, the light dims as it goes behind, and then brightens and dims a little bit then also when it goes in front of the asteroid. And that's like a clock, very regular intervals. When we change the orbit, the orbital period, which we expect to change by about 10 minutes, we will see that change in the light curve coming from the asteroid with ground-based telescopes. And so we'll know how much we change the orbit by looking at that change in orbital period. We've modeled all this up, of course. We know what to expect based upon the size of the spacecraft, the velocity we'll be impacting it with, and the size and the predicted mass of the asteroid. And so we'll compare what we then see after the impact with our models, and that will tell us how much we really understand about how these dynamics work. It's it's a science experiment. It's just like a science experiment. You predict what you're going to see, you do it, and then you compare the results.
So how are you working with allies like the European Space Agency on this issue?
Well, first of all, a CubeSat has been contributed by the Italian Space Agency, one of the members of the European Space Agency. But also the European Space Agency has a follow-on mission called Hera, which they plan to launch in 2024 and go to this same asteroid system, Didymos. It'll arrive in about 2026, 4 years after our impact, and do a complete reconnaissance of the system of both Didymos and Dimorphos, see what the results of the impact are, a post-impact assessment, so to speak, and provide an even more complete data of the system and our effects on the system.
So Lindley, are there any smaller asteroids that we might not know about that could be coming our direction in the future that maybe we should be worried about?
Well, actually, our primary purpose in the Planetary Defense Coordination Office program in NASA is to find all these near-Earth asteroids. We're tasked by Congress right now to find them all down to a size of about 140 meters in size, 500 feet. And we've been conducting this survey for over 20 years now. Our understanding of the population out there, based upon the modeling that we've done, indicates we've only found about 40% of that population so far. And at the current rate, we're finding about 500 a year. It'll take us about 35 years to find the rest of that population. And that's why we're working on improved capability to be able to do that. We really need to go to a space-based capability.
So what are your plans, Lindley, going forward to try out other asteroid deflection techniques? Or are we going to stay with kind of the ram into the asteroid to deflect it system?
Well, this technique that we're testing with DART, the kinetic impactor technique, is just one capability that might be used. It really depends on the scenario, how much time we have, how large the asteroid is, what might be the most effective technique. We chose to do this one first because the technology to do it is the most mature. But there are other ideas that might be tested in the future. For instance, a gravity tractor technique that's just using a spacecraft to station, keep with it, and nature's tug rope gravity just gradually tugs it off. Other ideas, ion beam deflectors, and some more exotic things, are talked about. But this will, with DART, we have one technique that works, given that the asteroid is not too large and we have several years of warning.
So, Lindley, will you come back in 10 months and tell us what happened?
Oh, absolutely. Be happy to.
All right, great. Thank you so much for being on the program. Nice talking to you.
Enjoyed it. Thank you much.
Coming next, the Space Development Agency is DoD's way to quickly develop space-based capabilities. Straight ahead on Government Matters, we'll talk to the director on getting that technology to the joint warfighter. We'll be right back. The Space Development Agency, or the SDA, is called DoD's constructive disruptor for space acquisition, delivering space-based capabilities to the warfighter quickly. Derek Tournear is the director of the Space Development Agency. It's within the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. Derek, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So your website says this, quote, SDA recognizes that good enough capabilities in the hands of the warfighter soon may be better than delivering the perfect solution too late. How do you define good enough?
That's an excellent question. The way we define it is essentially what is needed at the time to fight. And that, there's a lot of details in there. But the way we are set up, we're set up to deliver capabilities every 2 years. And so when we set up what we're going to deliver in 2 years, the first question is, what is feasible for industry to deliver in 2 years? And we know where we want to be in the next 6, 8, 10 years. And we just make sure we keep pushing down that roadmap to get there. And that's essentially what that means in good enough, is to make sure that we can get the capability that industry can produce in the hands of the warfighter as rapidly as possible.
But how do you know it's good enough for the warfighter?
Because we have requirements that are vetted by a warfighter council. We have a warfighter council that meets every 6 months. And in that, we present what we will deliver to the combatant commanders and we over the next 2 years. And we go around the room to make sure if we provide this capability in the next 2 years, will that affect your fight and your ability to actually respond to a threat? And when the answer comes back that yes, that's something that we can use, that's what we know, that's good enough, and we'll push forward in that. And we'll make sure we have thresholds that we try to, that's what we'll meet, what we call a minimum viable product. And then we have objectives that we strive for to essentially add capabilities. But if we need to dump those objectives off to meet the minimum viable product on schedule, we'll do that.
So, Derek, is this a new acquisition strategy, and can it be used across the department to speed up deployment of other high-tech systems? I mean, it's no secret that acquisition tends to be a bit slow for high-tech things.
At the Space Development Agency, we're not doing anything magical or actually using any real new authorities that are placed directly on us. The only thing we're doing is focusing on two main pillars: proliferation, so hundreds and hundreds of satellites, and then the spiral development. And that spiral development, that the activity we're talking about here and getting that good enough every 2 years, that is profound, and that could be used across the board. So there's activities, if you're really capitalizing on commercial investments, anything that's doing that can capitalize on that spiral development model. Now, there's a lot of very bespoke systems that have very detailed requirements, and that, then there's those may not be able to capitalize as much, but everything else can use this model.
So there are 28 missile tracking space sensor satellites that you're procuring for 2024. What capability do those provide, and how is that process going?
So right now we're in the draft phase of that solicitation, but those 28 satellites would give us single satellite global coverage for the ability to detect and track hypersonic glide vehicles as well as the traditional ballistic missile threats. So all of the new missiles you've heard about that China is developing and flying and testing, we would be able to detect and track those in the 2024-2025 timeframe.
You're also acquiring 144 communication satellites by 2024 that they should start launching, I should say, in late 2024. What's the capability that those will provide?
So right now, all of our warfighters have tactical data links that they use to command and control in theater. But there is no way that you can tie those tactical data links to other tactical data links that are in different theaters. And it's also very difficult to tie those direct links that go to weapon systems back to CONUS or back to targeting cells, CONUS being the continental United States. That transport layer, those 144 satellites, would network all of those tactical data links together and be able to give you low latency tactical connectivity from targeting cells to weapon systems.
So are there challenges, Derek, to operating so many satellites and from multiple vendors?
So the biggest challenge is producing those satellites. Right now, supply chain is a big deal across the board. Satellites are no exception. Even though we're using commoditized satellites, the commodities are no exception. So the biggest challenge is making sure that we can actually get the supply chains up and operational so that we can actually get the satellites out the door. Operating them, if you operate them based on the standard DoD model, it's extremely challenging. Essentially, there you have on the order of 20 individuals operating one satellite. That's not sustainable. We're flipping that to go to more of a commercial model where we have at least 20 satellites that are manned by one operator. And that's just based on the way commercial entities operate their satellites today.
The Space Development Agency will be transferring to the U.S. Space Force in the fall of 2022. What impact do you think that will have on your work?
So as an agency right now, we're independent and we're able to set our own requirements and push forward as rapidly as possible. We're working very closely with the Space Force and the Air Force to make sure that once we transfer over, we'll be able to continue to deliver these capabilities to the warfighter. And right now, the Space Force has been extremely helpful in making sure that we get the right processes in place so that we fit in as seamlessly as possible. So I don't anticipate a lot of challenges. Congress has actually been very helpful to make sure that a lot of our authorities are preserved so that we can continue to operate in a sense, giving an alternative way to do space acquisition within the Space Force. But I anticipate that once we fold in and we can start to directly integrate with the Space Force, we'll be able to deliver our capabilities just as efficiently.
All right. Well, Derek, I appreciate you being on the program. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Don't forget, if you miss an episode of Government Matters, it's at govmatters.tv. You can find a preview and a recap of each show when you sign up for our daily newsletters. Sign up for the email list on the Government Matters homepage. We'll be back in 2 minutes. That's the latest from Washington. Join me weeknights at 8 and 10:30 on WJLA 24/7 News and Sunday mornings at 10:30 on 7 News to stay plugged in on issues that matter to the business of government. Thanks for watching. I'm Mimi Geerges.